Hello, I'm Brenda Dickinson, the president of the Home Education Foundation and the full-time lobbyist for the Home Education Foundation in Tallahassee. I wanted to bring you an update on the last legislative session because it was very significant for parents in this past session. The legislation that was proposed to give home educators funds to purchase curriculum or classes or tutoring services was proposed in the first draft of HB1 to relate to home educating families. And so they placed all the information in the home education law, which is 1002.41. But I was really concerned about that type of draft for the legislation because it was going to be so confusing to the school districts in terms of who got money to pay for classes at the Florida Virtual School or the dual enrollment or any of the other classes that might be chosen by parents. So I went to work on trying to create a way that they could do what they wanted to do, which was to help homeschool families with the expenses of home education without destroying the home education law as it currently exists. Many people, especially homeschoolers, are concerned about getting money and then also getting more regulations. And I too am very concerned about that because I've seen that happen over the last 20 years with the voluntary pre-kindergarten and the private schools. And so in the beginning, HB1 was going to require that every parent have a choice navigator. It was mandated. And they would help you choose your curriculum and do assessments and all the kinds of things that I believe that parents should be in charge of. And yet they really felt like that was important to keep any kind of fraud out of the program, because as we create these scholarship programs for parents, we know there are a few bad actors out there that are going to take advantage of any situation where they can put money in their pocket. So we have to craft the accountability in such a way that it gives parents as much freedom as possible, but would also make it so that there won't be any fraud in the program, at least as much as we can prevent. So we have to look at all of those aspects. And I tried to get into the speaker back last summer because I knew a bill like this was going to be proposed this session. But we were unable to get in to even have an appointment with the speaker. In about November, I was able to speak to his district legislative aide and talk to her a little bit about the things that I wanted to see in the bill, but it didn't go anywhere. We were not able to get in to speak to staff. I had some of the people in different legislative districts who were home educating try to contact their legislators, and we weren't able to make any appointments, partly because on top of the regular session, they were also having a special session, and all the legislators were extremely busy. So when I was unable to get any appointments and I tried to get in to talk to staff and I was getting total resistance from staff, I decided that the only thing we could do was to pray. So I sent out an email and ask people to start praying about the opportunities to meet with legislators and try to present our viewpoint on the legislation. And sure enough, God always comes through, and the doors began to open. It was very timely. A friend of mine had a ticket to a dinner that I wasn't really interested in going to until she told me who the keynote speaker was. And at that point, I said, yes, I will go. And as I sat through the whole evening, the focus was on the speaker and what a great thing he was doing by creating this new scholarship program. Well, while some homeschoolers really opposed the legislation in full, I felt like it was important that we create an opportunity for those who wanted to take it, but also create a fallback position by retaining the home education law intact. So I waited in line, and I was the last to speak to the speaker, and I said, I know you're trying to do something good for home education families, and I think that's a great idea, but many homeschoolers don't want the money, and we need to craft this legislation in a different way. And he was very surprised, but said, I want you to talk to staff, and emailed them my name and said, please meet with her. After that, I had the opportunity to speak with the governor's office and tell them our concerns about the legislation and present them with an alternate way to be able to have what they wanted, but also preserve the right for parents who didn't want to take money. So in the next committee meeting, there was what we call a strike all, which means that all of the text that was in the bill in the first committee meeting was eliminated, and they put in a whole new language in the bill. And so that was when they created the Personalized Education Program. That program is in a separate section of law from the home education law, and it builds its own criteria for the program. So there are different laws in a different section of the statutes that relate to the Personalized Education Program. And in that program, parents will have to, if they're currently home educating, terminate their home education program, and they would register with the scholarship funding organization, which is going to be giving out the scholarships or vouchers. The two organizations that will be able to give those scholarships to parents are Step Up for Students and AAA scholarships. So they would have all of the information necessary to retain your child's enrollment to meet compulsory attendance. And homeschoolers turn in their intent to home educate to the superintendent. So we're in two different ways of registering for compulsory attendance. So the superintendent will have nothing to do with those families who choose to take a scholarship called the Personalized Education Program. The other thing within this program is that parents will have a limited way of doing an evaluation, but they will be able to choose a nationally normed reference test for their child to take at the end of the school year. The score on the test at this point is not important for the individual child. The state wants to have some way to measure the success of the total program. So your child's test scores will be turned in to the scholarship funding organization at the end of the year, and those test scores will be submitted to a state university, which at this time is contracted with Florida State University. They have a computerized program that they can take all of the test scores from the different types of nationally normed reference tests and put them into a comparison and create a composite of all the students that receive the scholarship. So your individual student's information will not become public, it will be protected, but we will have a way to measure the success of giving parents money to teach their children at home. I think our test scores are going to come out very good compared to the public or private schools, which they're currently already measuring. I think that parents that are in the program after 5 years, when those scores will be made public, are parents who are really committed to educate their children, and we're going to get some really excellent test scores. The good thing about it is, if in 5 years the test scores don't show up as well as I think they're going to be turning up, Parents who've retaken the scholarship can then revert back to a home education program where they take no money from the state and they have the same regulations that they currently have. So I think it's the best of both worlds. We knew that the scholarship was coming, and we knew that some parents were really going to want it. We've had an explosion of home education students over the last couple of years because of COVID and because of what's going on in the public schools that parents don't agree with. And so this is a way that parents who may not otherwise be able to afford to home educate are going to have the opportunity of bringing their children home. So while many people think it's a negative and that you should not take the state money, in my opinion, you have an option and you're not locked into the option that you choose. So I think it's the best of both worlds, and we'll be putting out more information on our website. And if you have further questions, you can go to the members section. You can ask questions there. And we may have a Q&A that we post based on the questions that you ask. So keep coming back to our website. We're going to be putting more and more information as we implement this bill, because once a law is passed, if all the details are not covered in the law, then we have to come up with rules, state rules, to be able to implement the program. And we're working on many of those things right now. One of the things that we were able to get into the bill was that parents could use the PEP program funds to be able to spend them on home education instructional programs. It's not defined anywhere in law, and we need to know exactly what those are so that we don't have one parent hiring another parent to educate their child and vice versa, so that we're giving parents money to home educate their children. We want these to be formalized programs that do provide good classes for the kids. So I'm working on a definition at the present time. I've run it by many of the programs that are now being utilized by home education families, such as Classical Conversation, HEED, the Hub. Many of these programs around the state that have been functioning for many years are great programs for parents to choose for classes. So we want to make sure that those are included and that parents are free to use their funds to purchase those classes. I'm having a meeting next week on May 30th with the Department of Education and with Step Up for Students to go over the definition and try to talk through it and make sure that this is something that if they decide to put it in a rule, which is passed by the State Board of Education, that we can all have a rule that is broad enough, a definition broad enough, that good programs can participate, and we will have eliminated as many of the potential frauds as possible. So as you can see, it's an ongoing work. It's not just showing up for a committee meeting and speaking for or against the bill or expressing your concerns. There's so much behind the scenes work that has to be done that many people never even know about. But until this program is implemented, and in the first few years, they're going to be coming to the Home Education Foundation to get answers and help in how to implement this for parents who want to teach their children at home. So stay tuned. We've got a lot more to come. Thank you so much.